Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the on-again, off-again plan to calm the markets down by behaving like a reasonably responsible government as Truss strings everyone along again, only to shift back to her original, unsustainable position. Flip-flopping has never been such an apt expression in politics. This is government hokey-cokey style. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I think politics teachers in this country must be loving this, or hating it maybe. I remember many years ago, and I had a physics class the morning after a bit of an earthquake. We don't really get earthquakes much around here, but there was a big old tremor. I mean, the ground didn't split asunder or anything, but the houses were shaking. And everyone came in wanting to know how this works, what's going on. I thought, I did an hour, basically an hour's lesson on explaining how these things work, how seismic forces work. And it was brilliant. Everyone was really engaged, absolutely fantastic. Downside is it wasn't actually on the curriculum at the time. It wasn't on the course. So it was all wasted. I wonder if politics is like that. Politics classes are like that. Everyone's really interested. What's going on about this then? What's going on about this then? And this is brilliant. Everyone's really engaged. And it's like, yeah, but this isn't what I'm supposed to be teaching you. I'm supposed to be teaching you some crap that happened 100 years ago. But it's been comical and tedious at the same time to see the far-right media commentators on their regular updates on the strength of the pound against various currencies. They keep trying to claim the pound's recovered. No, it's gone up. It's gone up. The mainstream media not talking about this, are they? And it's like, no, it hasn't gone up. It hasn't recovered. Recovered would mean it's gone back up to where it was before the budget was announced. I would say it should be back up to where it was just before Liz Truss was announced as Prime Minister. That's the benchmark when you start your government. Because the pound dropped on that day as well. But let's keep this about the budget and say it's not recovered until it's back up to where it was before the budget. But they keep watching it fall. These swivel-eyed loons, they know it's going down. That's fine. It'll go up in a minute. It'll go up in a minute. Then they wait for it to go up a bit. And then they proclaim to the world, it's all fine. All these people making a fuss. Look, it's fine. It's fine. Oh, why aren't the mainstream media reporting on this? But the facts of the matter are as follows. First, the pound is still down against our major trading currencies compared with the only time that matters. The Chancellor announcing the government's fiscal policies in Parliament. Second, even if it did recover, and at some point, surely it has to, at some point it will, it has still come at the cost of, so far, 65 billion quid that the Bank of England had to pump into the economy to prevent the obliteration of pension funds and a 2008 style run on the bank. Third, the pound tends to recover when the government makes a statement promising responsible behaviour. But then Truss immediately backtracks on the responsible promise and the pound drops again. This happened again today. Yesterday it was announced the Prime Minister and the Chancellor will be meeting with the Office for Budgetary Responsibility, the OBR are an independent, publicly funded group who provide economic impact assessments for all relevant government policies. A budget is a very relevant government policy when it comes to economic impacts. But the government did not accompany their budget statement last week with an OBR forecast. Kwarteng claimed that the OBR would take too long to produce. It would take weeks and weeks and weeks. Ian Blackford of the SNP wrote to the OBR to ask about this, and they replied back that it was all bollocks. They were ready to go with a forecast, as usual, as they have done for years. It was the government who declined it. The government are still trying to claim that it was impossible to get the OBR forecast in time, but this is an obvious lie. Apart from the fact the OBR have a track record of providing this service, it's what they do. If it was true that no economic forecast could be produced in time, how can the government say their plans will produce 2.5% growth by next year then? Isn't that an economic forecast? If Kwasi Kwarteng, with his degrees in history, can come up with a forecast like that, why would we believe that the experts couldn't? Actual economists, whose job it is to do this. It's all bollocks. But the point was that pressure was being brought to bear and that forecast would now be produced and published, it seemed, on October the 7th, next Friday. The pound rallied a bit at the news, and the right-wing nut jobs all went, oh, look, it's rallying. Yeah, I said, it's rallying because the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have promised to be a good little boy and girl now, haven't they? They then remained silent when the pound fell again after the meeting, because after the meeting, it was announced that the OBR would be producing their forecast for the government next Friday, as was reported yesterday, but that it wouldn't be published until November the 23rd, which is the unacceptable position they adopted a week ago that we all thought was being reversed now. This isn't good enough for the public or MPs because we want to know what the government's spending plans are exactly. How much are they going to cost? How is the bill going to be divided up? The government claim their plans will result in 2.5% growth in a year's time. We know they won't, but if they insist, they can show us the evidence. But it's also not good enough for investors for different reasons. They want to see the flow of money in detail. They're not bothered how it flows or to where, just so long as they can see it in order to work out the best fishing spot. Tax cuts for the rich by slashing public services even more, they don't care. They just want to know what the government are going to do. They can make money from bad as well as good governments, but they cannot make sound investment decisions with chaotic governments. So some investors flocked back to the pound with the news that an OBR forecast would be a week away. They obviously thought, right, Tory MPs have got round there, they've pressured them, they're now going to start actually producing a forecast. They don't care how ridiculous the forecast is, as long as it explains how the books are being balanced. That's all they wanted. You know, they just want to see that flow of money. And then the pound was abandoned again at the news that the forecast would exist, but nobody gets to see it for like a further 6 weeks. So 7 weeks before any bugger gets to see it. Fully 2 months after the budget announcement. And this is because investments are long-term decisions. None of these uncosted and unpopular tax cuts are in effect right now. Parliament hasn't even voted for the budget yet. The tax cuts will come into effect much later on next year, not now. I saw one of the GB News munchkins saying that people would be happy when they see how much extra they get in their payslip next month. Cretin. Even given the fact ordinary people will barely notice anything when it does come in, they will notice the much higher increase in bills, mind you. None of these tax cuts are out now. Nobody sees any difference in their payslip next month, except me. I actually feel quite bad. This Insanity is working out pretty well for a YouTuber, so I'll have to make sure it works out well for the Trussell Trust as well. These moronic ignoramus in the media get on my tits. I can sort of deal with the shysters. See, I know they're just con artists. They know what's going on. They're lying. I get that. I understand that. I can see that. But some of them are just thick. But anyway, never mind that now. All this means is that Liz Truss is fast becoming the Prime Minister who cried wolf. Twice this week, she said that she's going to start to behave with a little more decorum, and twice she's gone back on it. She flips, then flops, then flips again. She'll soon have a reputation for just being a liar without even the skill in doing so that her predecessor had. And I know what people are thinking. She's probably just doing it on purpose to maximise the profits of her hedge fund manager mates. She'll be saying to them, hey, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll pretend to be sane for this evening, right? And then tomorrow I'll announce that I'm actually still batshit crazy. Can you make money out of that? Of course you can. You go away, son. She's done it twice this week. And I can absolutely see that being entirely possible. It is quite illegal, of course, but there'll not be an investigation. But politically, it's a shambles. Tory MPs are fairly helpless right now because they can't physically meet with Parliament in recess. You know, to coordinate, a lot of them need to be able to talk to each other, the old cloak and dagger stuff. They won't dare conspire in chat rooms because they can't be certain everyone there can be trusted. It's too hard to coordinate with one-on-one phone conversation chains as well. So until Parliament's back, which isn't for like a while yet, there's still going to be lots of grumbling and individual representations to the Cabinet and moaning to journalists. We'll hear the odd little thing come out, but nothing coordinated, I suspect. But all that means is Truss is going to be sticking to her guns for so long that she looks foolish when backbenchers force her to at least abandon the top tax band cut. Because that's what they want at least. At least get rid of that. What they really want is to sack Kwarteng, dump the blame on him, get rid of the top tax band cut, get rid of that put the cap back, I should say, on bankers' bonuses. Those are the most unpopular policies, and they can probably squeak through with the rest of it. Liz Truss said last week she was prepared to be unpopular. She wasn't kidding, was she? But I don't think lots of Tory MPs are prepared to be unpopular. Someone from the Daily Mail reported that a senior Tory told them Truss is finished, that lots of letters are going in. Now, I'd always be cautious of statements like this because Tory MPs were saying Johnson was finished 6 months before he actually was. I mean, they were right. He was finished in that it was inevitable, but it doesn't mean it's a quick process from there on in. But what they gave as the reason is absolutely how I read it. It's quite frank, really. It's perfectly honest. They said it wasn't entirely the budget, it's just that she was crap. It's the way she didn't communicate things. She didn't get the public on board. She frightened people rather than reassuring them. This is the reason. Make no mistake, there's nothing in the budget announced last week or the one intended for November with its massive cuts to public services that is of the slightest concern for Tory MPs. If Tory MPs were against moves like this, they would have stopped them before they were even started. Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng cannot do this without the support of their party. No, what has their MPs concerned is the optics, how the public see it. If Truss could have conned the public with something and then snuck these exact same policies through behind the distraction, none of them would have murmured any disapproval at all. What they object to, just as with Boris Johnson, is not the behaviour. They were fine with Johnson's behaviour when they were looking good in the polls. It's not the policies. They were fine with the policies that were killing people left, right and centre. It's the PR disasters. They didn't get rid of Johnson because of Partygate or corruption or even because he put a known sexual predator in charge of hearing reports of sexual harassment. He was removed because he was killing the Tories in the polls. Well, those polls are a whole lot worse now. Not only is Truss proceeding with unpopular policies, without even throwing a distraction policy to get people on side, she's monumentally bad at communicating. People who heard those interviews yesterday will know. I talked earlier on about the YouGov polls being, giving Labour a much larger lead than others, and that was, I said, probably down to the fact their polling was more up to date, so it would have included people who'd listened to the interviews. Well, there was another poll out today with a similarly large lead for Labour, 30 points this time. So again, I think that's what we're seeing. The interview she gave was instrumental, I suspect. I've said it before. All Truss had to do was announce something crowd-pleasing, just loosen the bolts on the torture rack for a bit, because that always works for Tory leaders. Put the public on the rack for a few years. We've won an election, put them on the rack, squeeze what you can out of them. Then spend the run-up to the next election just loosening the bolts a little. You don't let them off. You don't give them any food or anything. Just loosen the bolts a little. Give them a little bit of relief to the victims, who are so grateful that they vote for him again. Then, after the election, bolts get tight and back you go. But no, Truss just didn't stick to her very right-wing promises from the leadership election. She seemed to tilt further to the right. The Financial Times has produced a couple of graphics, here's one of them, to show this. So now the far-right commentators are accusing the FT of being communists. Yeah, sure, the outlet which lobbies for investment bankers and shareholders are all commies, of course they are. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.